The sky sagged under the weight of low clouds, turning the world a dull shade of gray. A narrow, cracked road cut through fields of brittle grass that hissed in the wind. At the end of it stood the house, not ruined enough to be abandoned, yet far too old to still belong to anyone. Its frame leaned inward, as if bracing against some unseen pressure. The siding had peeled away in strips, exposing dark wood beneath. The windows were deep-set, glass dulled to a sheen that caught the light like wet eyes. The air changed on approach. The wind faded to stillness, the sound of grass vanished. The front yard was choked with weeds and pieces of a broken fence, some driven into the earth at strange angles. The porch groaned with every step, the boards damp and soft. The door had no lock, no resistance, it opened smoothly, almost eagerly. Inside, the air was damp and stale, heavy with the scent of mold and something faintly metallic. The walls were papered in faded flowers, the pattern curling away to reveal blackened wood beneath, warm to the touch. The hallway stretched ahead, far deeper than the house had appeared from outside. Doors lined each side, each shut tight. Behind the first few were identical rooms, a warped table, a single chair, an empty picture frame nailed to the wall. None had windows. Each step forward seemed to dampen the air, pressing in from all sides. At the end of the hall, a staircase rose steeply. The railing was slick, the steps creaking in irregular bursts, not from movement but as though the wood itself shifted and breathed. Upstairs, the space felt narrower. The walls leaned, the ceiling sloped low enough to brush ahead. Behind one door came faint tapping, like nails on glass. Behind another, the slow rustle of something moving without footsteps. A single bulb hung from a frayed cord, swaying though the air was still. The largest door stood at the far end, its wood swollen, rippling like muscle beneath skin. The brass knob was slick and ice-cold, wet enough to leave droplets on the skin. The room beyond was vast, impossibly so. Every wall was covered in mirrors, their glass warped and cracked. The reflections were wrong, dimmer, shadowed, showing a figure in the center that moved with sharp, jerking motions, its head tilting too far to one side. Slowly, in every reflection, it began to smile. From a corner that didn't exist outside the glass, something emerged, thin, tall, its outline rippling like heat haze. The mirrors cracked one by one, the sound like bones snapping. When the last one shattered, the door was gone. Only mirrors remained, and in each, the figure stood just behind, breath cold against the back of the neck. The motel sat alone along a stretch of road where the asphalt bled into gravel and then into nothing. Its neon sign buzzed faintly, casting an anemic glow that didn't quite reach the ground. The parking lot was nearly empty, the spaces faded to ghosts of paint. A single street lamp stood at the edge, its bulb stained with age, washing everything below it in a sickly yellow hue. Room 6 smelled faintly of dust and old air conditioning. The carpet was thin, matted in irregular patterns, as though something had been dragged across it too many times. The walls bore pale outlines where pictures had once hung, rectangles cleaner than the surrounding paint. A single lamp sat in the far corner, its yellowed shade muting the light until it seemed to seep rather than shine. The bulb flickered now and then, dimming to a heartbeat before swelling again. The only other sound came from the mini-fridge in the corner, its hum steady until, at irregular intervals, it would falter, skipping like a mist pulse. A duffel bag lay on the bed, half unzipped, spilling mismatched clothing onto the blanket. Beneath them was a photograph, a house with warped siding and sunken windows, its yard swallowed by weeds. No writing marked the back. On the desk sat a notebook, its pages creased and stained. The entries were brief, uneven, still outside. Same place every night. Knows I can see him. The last page bore no words, only a solid black circle pressed so hard into the paper that it nearly tore through. The mirror above the desk was warped, glass rippled with age so that reflections appeared stretched and thin. When the lamp flickered, the image inside lagged for a fraction of a second, as though the reflection existed slightly out of sync with reality. Through the curtain's narrow gap, the parking lot seemed unchanged, except for the car. A dark sedan sat 2 spaces from the door, its headlights off. Inside, a pale glow illuminated the outline of a figure in the driver's seat. The head was still, facing forward, unmoving. The curtain had shifted. No memory of touching it, yet the gap was smaller now. From within the thin slice of view, the eyes of the figure caught the yellow lamp's reflection, small, glinting points in the dark. The hum of the fridge stopped altogether. The silence that followed pressed into the ears, thick and heavy. The lamp dimmed to a faint ember. In the mirror, the reflection no longer matched the room. The bed behind was occupied now. A figure sat there, back to the viewer, its head slowly turning in the glass though the air behind remained still. The lamp's flicker froze. The reflection smiled. The radio station stood on the edge of the industrial district, where empty warehouses loomed like hollow teeth. Its tower leaned slightly, a rusted spine of steel against the overcast sky. The sign above the entrance, 93. 6 WNKR, all-night radio, had faded until the letters were almost gone. The lobby floor was scattered with leaves and scraps of paper, carried in long ago through a door that no longer closed fully. Beyond it, hallways led into the dark. The air was dry but carried the faint tang of ozone, like the aftermath of a storm. The control room sat at the heart of the building, its glass walls filmed with grime. Faders and switches rested in their final positions. A reel-to-reel machine stood at the center, one spool empty, the other holding a single black tape marked in trembling letters, "Play me last." When the power switch was thrown, the machine groaned, then came to life with a hiss of static. At first there was only dead air, then a faint voice, distorted, as if carried through deep water. It spoke without preamble, describing places, a long hallway with no windows. A room of mirrors that showed the wrong reflection. A yellow lamp in a corner, flickering against warped glass. The voice never named locations, but each description felt exact, as if pulled from memory. After a long pause came background noise, irregular tapping, faint scraping, the soft creak of a step taken on old wood. The voice returned, slower now, its words deliberate. It gave an address, numbers, a street name, and repeated it twice. A muffled door hinge followed. Footsteps moved away, fading until they were replaced by a sound too soft to place, perhaps breath, perhaps the wind through an open space, perhaps something closer. When the tape ended, the silence was complete. The lights in the control room flickered, dimmed, and then steadied. From somewhere deeper in the station came the distinct click of a door latching shut. Through the control room window, the tower outside appeared unchanged, except for a pale light glowing from one of its upper rooms. The building's blueprint said no such room existed. This wraps the trilogy so it can be read continuously in a video, with each section feeling distinct but subtly connected. The high-rise had been empty for years, its glass exterior clouded with grime, the lobby doors chained but still shifting faintly when the wind pressed against them. Inside, the air was sharp with the scent of dust and rainwater that had seeped in through cracked windows. Footprints marked the dirt on the marble floor, but there were no signs of where they led. The elevators were dead, their doors locked halfway open, revealing only darkness. To the left of them was a stairwell door painted in a dull, peeling red. The handle was colder than the air, slick with condensation. The stairwell was wrong. From the outside, the building had 12 floors, but the stairs led both higher and lower than that, each landing unmarked by numbers. The walls were bare concrete, but darker patches spread in shapes that suggested hands pressed there for too long. Every third step creaked, but not underfoot, the sound came from somewhere below, a split second after each pause. The air grew warmer the deeper it went, heavy with a faint metallic taste. Several floors down, a landing opened to a narrow hallway that should not have been there. The floor was damp, the walls bulged slightly, as though something inside was pressing outward. At the end was another door, black and unmarked, its surface glistening as though wet. The handle turned, but the door did not open. Continuing down, the steps began to warp underfoot. The angles shifted subtly, as though the staircase was leaning away from its own center. Somewhere far below, a faint light pulsed, slow, irregular, like a dying heartbeat. When the bottom was reached, there was no exit. Only another stairwell door, identical to the first, but when it opened, it led not to the lobby, but to the same landing where the descent had begun. The footprints on the marble floor now pointed toward the stairwell. The red-painted door stood slightly ajar. The lake lay deep in the forest, its shoreline hidden until the trees suddenly broke away. The air was colder here, heavy with the scent of wet earth and decaying leaves. Mist drifted over the water's surface, moving slowly against the wind, as though it had its own direction to follow. The ground near the water's edge was soft enough that footprints left clear impressions. They led from the tree-line to the shore and then simply ended, the last step vanishing into the shallows. No ripples disturbed the surface, yet the water seemed to pulse with a faint rhythm. Across the lake, something moved. At first it appeared to be a shadow cast by the trees, but it shifted when nothing else did. The outline was human, but wrong, too tall, limbs elongated just beyond natural proportion. It stood perfectly still, though the mist curled around it without touching. The lake's surface reflected the tree-line perfectly, except for one thing: the reflection contained no mist, no ripples, only stillness. In the reflection, the tall figure was closer, standing at the exact opposite shore. Its head was tilted slightly, as though listening. A faint sound rose from the water, not the lap of waves, but something like breathing. The footprints in the mud deepened without anyone stepping into them, the edges crumbling inward. The reflection began to move toward the center of the lake. On the real water, nothing disturbed the surface, yet the image in the reflection came closer with each heartbeat. The mist thinned, and now the far shore was empty. The reflection reached the midpoint of the lake and stopped. Its head tilted again. In the mirrored water, behind where the observer would be standing, a yellow light flickered faintly, the kind of light from a lamp in a small, dark room. The sound of breathing was closer now, rising from the ground beneath the feet rather than from the water. The reflection smiled.